We just saw the official announcement and reveal of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. If you didn't watch the announcement stream or haven't been following this game too closely, in effect, it's going to be pretty different than a lot of the more recent Star Wars games we have been seeing. This is going to be a game featuring no multiplayer or microtransactions. Those are pretty much staples of some of the past releases. And in reality, it's going to be a story-driven, single-player only game. Earlier today, we just learned a ton about this game. First and foremost, we actually got a trailer that I'm sure many of you have seen at this point, but I would actually say if you watched the trailer and weren't in love with it, this is going to be a good video for you to watch. I personally didn't find the trailer all that exciting. What I actually found exciting, and the reason I'm covering this game, is some of the other details that were shared during the conference itself and actually through other leaks we have seen. Because now that we have additional information, we know that this game actually leaked roughly 4 months ago. So in this video, I'm going to be going over all of that, looking somewhat at the trailer, but mostly at a lot of the other details you can find out to try and propose whether or not you should be interested in this, and why I think certain fans of Fallout or other single-player RPG games might like this one. Like, first and foremost, one of the things that is seemingly confirmed is that this will be an open world game. On the description, you could see that you're going to explore different biomes, but even further that you'll have the freedom to decide when and where you go next. And I mean, one of the other big factors, we got confirmation that the release date for this one is November 15th of this year, so we don't even have to wait that long. So in effect, the premise of this game is it's going to be following the Jedi Purge after Order 66. If you're not familiar with the Star Wars universe, basically there was a bunch of Jedi that worked alongside the clone troopers. The master of the clone troopers was like, kill the Jedi. All the clone troopers did, and that's where we find ourselves now. It is a very dark time where the bad guys are largely in control, and the few Jedi that do remain are being hunted down and have to remain in hiding. And that's actually how we enter into this game. We are going to be a younger Jedi that was unsuccessfully killed during Order 66. But during this game, we are going to be a novice. We're going to learn how to use our force powers, our lightsaber, and any other abilities we do get. And they actually mentioned that the main premise of this game originally was around force powers and having a character that can use a lightsaber. So it seems like that's really going to be one of the core mechanics. It's described as an action-adventure game where the combat is really important. Unfortunately, in the latest trailer, we don't actually see any of that combat because even though it's an in-engine trailer using art assets, it's really more of a cinematic trailer. We don't have any genuine gameplay of this game just yet. But during the panel, they shared several things that actually got me kind of excited. It made me more interested in this game than I otherwise would be. They describe combat as being, again, a really main focus, and as a result, it's going to be easy to approach. In other words, if you're not super good at video games, you probably can pick this one up and find success. But they also describe it as one of those things that if you really put the hours into it and try and master it, there can be a lot of depth to this combat. But that this game is really not meant to be a button masher, so you're not just spamming abilities to try and take the enemy down, but rather being a bit more thoughtful. And one of the things that I thought was cool was how they actually talked about certain enemies. They say in this game, when you see your traditional stormtrooper just kind of wandering around, it's not going to be one of those games where you have to slash him a bunch of times to lower his health bar. They say pretty much all the stormtroopers will die in one hit because, hey, you're a Jedi with a lightsaber. That's how that works. And really, some of the tougher enemies are going to be strategically tough. They're going to block your attacks or be more complicated. They mentioned that a key part of this game is going to be when you encounter an enemy, you're going to want to identify a core weakness of them. You're going to have to take a step back and actually think about what you're going to do before you start fighting someone. From the game's description, we know that there's going to be things like striking, obviously, parrying and dodging also though. Even further, we see two of the main enemies we are going to be encountering. First and foremost, you have the second sister Inquisitor. The Inquisitors were set up following Order 66 to actually hunt down Jedi. These weren't just your run-of-the-mill people though, they were actually force sensitive, so they did have force powers to some degree, and highly trained. As a result, there's only a few of these in the universe thus far, such that adding a new one, as they do here with the second sister, is kind of a big deal if you follow Star Wars. Based off what we see in the trailer and the description of her, it seems like she's going to be one of the main antagonists. She's going to be hunting us down throughout the story, and we can actually see in one scene where she uses the force to move the flight controller. But there being such a limited number of Inquisitors, and such a high number of Jedi rumors, the Inquisitor can't go everywhere to investigate whether a Jedi is there or not. Thus, as a result, we get the new trooper type, that with Purge troopers. When there's a rumor of a Jedi, basically the Purge troopers will go in, investigate the rumor, and if they find a Jedi, they'll call back to an Inquisitor to come down. These are highly trained and specifically trained to fight Jedi, hence you'll be fighting them fairly often, and also they'll be kinda tough. As far as other gameplay aspects go, we can see through the trailer that seemingly wall running will be a component of this. We of course also will have a variety of force powers and our own lightsaber. A big part of the gameplay is going to be developing these. You're going to be able to unlock new force powers and abilities, and they say that after going through one area of the map, you might not be able to get to certain places based on which force powers you do have. Thus, you'll have to go back there later on and you could fully explore it or get more out of entry-level areas. And specifically with the lightsaber, they say that this lightsaber looks interesting. You could see this in some of the teaser art and trailer. It looks like a used lightsaber, and they suggest that it might not originally be our own lightsaber. Maybe it's another major character from the Star Wars franchise. They didn't want to spoil anything around this though, because the lightsaber is a big part of the story. The main character Cal almost grows with the lightsaber, so you'll see changes to that as you see changes to him. And overall for the gameplay, they mention how it's going to be really focused on combat, exploration, and puzzle solving. We are also getting a new droid that in effect seems like it's going to basically be a companion. This guy's name is BD1, they call him Buddy Droid. They mention how it's your best friend in this universe, and you could actually grow with him, and he'll have certain abilities, like he could have a spotlight on a certain area. One of the cool parts is the guy that actually did the sounds and voice for this thing is actually the same one that did a lot of the original sounds for the Star Wars franchise, like R2-D2, lightsaber sounds, etc. We also have this woman, which is apparently named Sierra. She was a former Jedi Knight, and we're going to have some kind of relationship with her along with a group of several others. It almost sounds like you're going to be traveling with a party of people throughout the story of this one, and then maybe departing from them to complete certain quests on your own. And even though she was a Jedi Knight, it's not like we have a typical master and Padawan relationship. That's not the dynamic here. So I left the trailer to the end of this video because, again, I think a lot of the most interesting details, and it's not from the trailer, it's from the panel, from the store page, and from other things that I talked about throughout the rest of this. The trailer does tell us quite a bit about the theme and mood of this game, which was only reinforced by those other sources. It seems like as you enter into this game, it's going to be dark and dreary. You're on your own. The writer of this one is actually the writer of the Clone Wars TV show, which is highly regarded, so that's a good sign. They do mention that the planet this is taking place on is Broca. Cal's job is basically taking apart some of these old ships, which is regarded as really dangerous. Naturally, he's trying to hide and lay low during this whole time, but as we could see in the trailer, he seemingly saves someone using a force power, then people catch on to him, and then he's on the run as a refugee. Although one pretty interesting part is they mentioned that in the trailer, at the beginning, you're meant to trust nobody. But it seems like over this game's arc, you're meant to actually start building more of a community, developing more friendships, and actually starting to fight back by rebuilding. As far as trailer details go, they mentioned that this is shot in engine and using in-game art assets, so it gives you an idea of what visually it'll look like. Obviously, it's not real gameplay though, and I would expect even further changes. It still is EA, so be wary about what we end up getting. But outside of that, there are some interesting or otherwise telling scenes that we can spot. Right here, you see what looks like a Jedi starfighter. You've seen these throughout probably most of the movies. They are kind of a mainstay during some of the prequels. Interestingly though, this is a purple Jedi starfighter. This is notable because one Mace Windu did use this. In the description of this game, you can see Star Wars fans will recognize iconic locations, weapons, gear, and enemies. So maybe we'll get actual storylines around certain characters we know, even if we don't meet them. Here we see a clone trooper with green coloring. This could be indicative that he was in the 41st Clone Trooper Corps. These guys were stationed on Kashyyyk. That planet, of course, had a pretty prominent spotlight in the movies, as well as it's actually the homeworld of the Wookiees. This planet actually looks a lot like Dathomir, although it's not explicitly confirmed or denied. This is notable because it's where Darth Maul actually was born. He also does return here several other times, so I wouldn't be surprised if during our story we at some point maybe encounter his. Whether that be just some of the remnants of him, as I mentioned before with Mace Windu, or something greater. One last thing worth noting is there actually is going to be a deluxe edition of this game, which has some interesting features. With the deluxe edition, you actually get a director's cut behind the scenes feature and content, as well as additional unique cosmetic equipment. And if you just pre-order this game at all, you'll actually get a unique cosmetic equipment for your lightsaber and droid companion. This is interesting because I'm curious as to how this will be implemented. This doesn't have microtransactions. That has been confirmed confirmed, so perhaps there's going to be some in-game unlock system where you can progress towards cosmetics, as it used to be like back in the day before microtransactions took over. So overall, I would say what we see here looks decent. Maybe you're more hyped by this than me, but I don't know, I don't really love these in-engine footage that doesn't show us any gameplay or really indicate all that much. But at the same time, I think what we heard about this game is really exciting. That's the part I'm really latching onto. We know it's coming out just later this year, so you have to imagine the gameplay must look decently polished, or at least be presentable, and I will certainly be holding out hope for that. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you found this informative. Hopefully it gave you a better idea of what to expect from this game. But with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.